Tonight's episode of the 31st Lap Podcast is brought to you by DirtTrackDigest.com. If it's on dirt, it's on Dirt Track Digest.
This is the 31st Lap Podcast, recorded live in the studios of FingerLakes1.com in downtown Seneca Falls, New York. And now, your hosts, Chris Marquardt.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the 31st Lap. You probably, for a minute there, got to watch the Godzilla version where you had no sound, which saw my mouth moving. So, episode number 228 of the 31st Lap. Appreciate everybody coming along to join us here on a very busy Thursday for Motorsports Rolling Wheels Raceway. Looks like they've got some action lined up for the Sportsman guys tonight. We've got stuff going on over at the Seneca County Fairgrounds. Great to have everybody along. We'll be here for about a half hour or so here at the North Park building here at Academy Square. Donnie Lawson joining us here for this episode. We'll talk about his run through Woodhull. We've got some area results to go over. We'll take a look at what Stu Friesen did over there at Eldora. A lot of stuff to hit on through the course of our time together here tonight on FingerLakes1.tv. Jumping right into it real quick, we've got Donnie Lawson waiting in the wings. Appreciate Donnie making some time to come and hang out with us here for a little bit this evening. Donnie, man, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You bet, Donnie. Big win over the weekend for you in that Jake Davis Memorial race over at Woodhull. Fortunes have really turned around for you the last couple weeks, couple wins now over at Woodhull, rebounding back from some of the trouble that you had earlier this year. Right off the bat, what's that win mean to you to come away with that? And it's not a bad night of work for a couple laps at Woodhull.
Yeah, it was a special win, not just because of the money either, because Jake Davis was a really good kid, and he was a kid I had in sixth grade in my math class, and I knew the families well and knew him, and it was really just an unfortunate event when it happened, and it's sort of been a special moment that they can do to remember him, and so it was nice to get it for that aspect. And then now that Stephen Ovens is coming up there, there's a lot of neat things they did with it, like the crown and the cape and things like that, and so I thought it was definitely cool to just be a little unique to win it, and money was nice too.
Jake Davis was the young son of one of the racers out there. He passed
Bobby
away.
Davis, yep.
It was passed away
Bobby Davis, yep.
in a four-wheeler accident. You were saying that was about 5 years ago, and now you're the fifth different winner of that event. You said he was a former student of yours.
Yeah, and he, like I say, he was going to race himself, and his dad had owned the modified and ran modified Bobby Davis. He still owns the 60J that runs, and Kenny Peoples was his uncle. So, as a family, I was really involved in racing and everything, and it hit a lot of people, hit close to home when it happened, because it, just was a family that you grew up around, and something like that happens, it's a shock, and it's unfortunate, and there's no words to help heal it. So you just try to move on one day at a time, and their family's done a great job, and they put this show on each year to remember them. And the school I teach at has a little memorial they do for them at the soccer field, and it's really nice for that.
Very, very, very good tributes, and it's nice when that stuff carries on. A lot of times you see somebody in the motorsports world and they pass and they have this memorial, and everybody starts out with good intentions, but the further removed you get from that ground zero, that initial shock where that person's no longer with you, everybody starts to heal, and they don't have as much they don't have as much pain, and they don't put the effort in to remember as well. And I know there's a good friend of ours in the Demolition Derby side of things that passed away a couple years ago on the 27th of July. And this time of year, we started thinking about him quite a bit. And a lot of people started out with good intentions to have memorials and tributes and things like that. But all those have sort of drifted away, and they've gone away, and everybody's sort of moved on. So the fact that memory of Jake Davis persists and stays close to that Woodhull racing community and the family and the school as well, it's good to hear. That's one of those things that you want everybody not only to remember and grow from and carry on that spirit, but also to learn from and keep that continuing.
Yeah, and then like I say, with him, it's been a it's been really nice because it's become more of a celebration now at this point. And you know, and Jake was a kid who joked around a lot and was always happy. So, you know, I think the mood of it has really been a good change, and it's where sort of people celebrate, you know, who he was and try to remember his memory that way. So it's been a nice, you know, it's a nice thing. I mean, it's unfortunate the way it came about, but it's a nice way to remember him each year.
How about your mood? Your mood's got to be better the way things have been going the last couple of weeks versus how they started in 2017.
Yeah, we like I say, we started really good, and then all of a sudden the things just came off the rails, and we had two motor problems pretty much back to back, and had a rear end failure that caused the motor problem at Outlaw, and then at Woodhall we broke a valve, and they were back to back nights. Probably about the worst weekend I've ever had because we didn't finish either night, and then we ended up going from two cars and two motors down to one car and one motor, which was our backup motor, but we've been going good with that, and it's a good piece. It's a strong motor. It's a twin to the one that we broke a valve in, and it works really good at Woodhall. We've been fortunate enough to win 2 in a row and then win a Jake Davis Memorial, and we should have really had a third in a row in the feature the other night. But, you know, some kid got turned in front of me a little bit and ended up costing us to win. But at Outlaw, it hurts a little bit because it's killing us not having the motor to compete with those guys. But,
right.
You know, it's if it would dry up over there, it'd be great, but keep it pretty moist.
Do you prefer a dry, slick track?
Yeah, I do most of the time. Like I say, I like it when you can find something somewhere, like a little bit. Like I don't know. Like we traveling wise, usually you can find something most places you go. I know some of the central New York tracks get really, really black and slick, and we don't run them all the time because of the tire rule that we're under. Right. But like I say, that I don't know if I'd like them as much, but I like the slick that we get, which is pretty slippery. But you know, I don't like a heavy track where it's hammered down. Takes no talent to run that, and all it does is tear up cars and hurt motors, and it just is expensive all the way around.
Yeah, that's true. Talking about the slick tracks and having to hunt around a little bit, you've had to do a little bit of that at Outlaw this year, finding the quick way around that track, and you alluded to being hampered a little bit because you don't have the motor back that was hurt earlier this year. Having that essentially open motor rule that they've got over there, do you prefer to run something that has big cubic inches and big power, or given some of the variables in the track over there this year, is it better to have a smaller motor that's got good torque numbers that can get you up off the corner and you don't need that huge horsepower because it's so tight?
I think if you have like a big small block, like something in the 410, 415, 430 range is the ideal way to go. Yeah. I think the big block some nights is too much, but you know, some of the guys that have those big small blocks too have the budgets where they can really put the gear to them, and that makes it a challenge for like a lower budget team like us, because we have one of them and it should be back here shortly, but it's not a motor that we crank like some of those guys do, and you know, and not to sound like I'm complaining all the time, but it's hard to, it's sort of that David versus Goliath kind of thing when you're trying to run against those budgets. You're doing what you can and you're doing the best you can, and with what we have, it works good, but it's over there right now. There's a lot of competition. That's very good got drivers with very good equipment, and it makes it tough. It's
very stacked over there. The Friday night program is awesome, but you're not surrounded by slouches over at Woodhall either. In building off that topic with the motor, like we just talked about, having the big small block, you're sort of pigeonholed not just by tires but also by your motor combination at Woodhall running the 370 car. Tell me a little bit about the power plant in that, and does that, you know, you said the one motor was a twin to the car that you had. Are they both 370s?
Yeah, what we actually run is 360s. We don't run all the way to 370s because that sort of goes back to when they had the ROC rules where if you were 361 or under, you could run the lighter weight. Right. So that's what we had as motors. And then, you know, like the 370 is sort of a weird, odd number because, you know, like a 383 is a cheap motor build, and that's too big, where a 370 is basically just a bored out, you know, 355. And right. I don't know, it's just an odd number, and it's sort of, some guys build them right to the edge on them, but like I say, we always were able to travel and run a lighter weight with them at 360, and we go good with them at Woodhall. And Woodhall, you don't need a lot of motor, and I think even if they open the motor rules up, which there's been some talk about, I think you'll see guys win with every different combination, because it's the kind of track where it slickens up enough where you don't need anything too powerful.
Right.
But it's just, it's right now it works good for us. But like you say, it sort of stinks sometimes when you see different shows and you want to go to it, but you can't, because you just either don't have enough motor, or you don't have something that fits within the combination. Like a lot of the dirt shows with the spec-headed stuff, we had a spec-headed motor, and it just wasn't enough to run there and compete there, with what we had. And so you couldn't have one of them to travel, so you had to build a bigger motor. Well, then, that's not big enough to go elsewhere. It's just big enough for there. And I wish all the tracks would get on a common page. That was the one good thing when I was a kid growing up with, like, the dirt car rules and stuff, is everywhere used to be dirt car rules, and until, like, around the 2000s, and then things started changing a lot. But you could really do a lot then, and that was nice.
You hit on a bunch of different topics that I wanted to get into. I guess we'll dial it back and start with that motor combination thing, in terms of Outlaw and having a car for there, and your budget, and having a car for over at Woodhall. At this point, how many cars do you have? You're not to pick on you or anything. You guys aren't a massive budget team compared to some of the other guys that you see through the course of your weekend. How many cars do you have at this point?
Well, we have the 2 modifieds, and we have a crate car, which sounds like a lot, but there are things that we've accumulated over time,
Sure.
Like the crate car runs a 2007 Tio, and that was my Woodhall car until we hurt the motor. And then we did a lot of swapping around. But and then the other one we have is a 2014 Tio that we bought used, and I don't know, I haven't really ever liked it yet. We ran it as a crate car at the beginning of this year, and had some decent finishes with it. And then that's the car that we're going to put the Outlaw motor in and try to run there when we get that back. And then we actually bought a certificate for a teal frame, and that's how we get the newer frame, and we put our used parts over on. That's the car that I was running the Outlaw at the beginning of the year, and now I'm running at both places, but I think that's going to be reserved just for Woodhall here shortly when we get the other motor back, because it just seems to really work good there. And the nice thing about Woodhall is it takes care of stuff. You don't tear stuff up there, and the track's really easy in equipment. So we have those 3 cars that we run, but probably more than what we should have with our budget-wise, even though they're used ones, because it's hard to maintain and upkeep cars, and price-wise and time-wise and everything, it's just, but you put a lot of hours into it, and I got a lot of respect for these guys that run this amount of, like, the 70, 80 shows a year, because a lot of work burns you out pretty quick.
The sportsman car and everything reminded me of some of the time, you've been through a lot over there with Black Rock and Dundee Raceway, and now Outlaw Speedway, with a lot of division changes, going from 358s going to sportsman as the headline class, going to the crate combination, then back over to the small block, big block combo that they've got now. You guys have probably accumulated quite a bit, because you've endured a lot of changes over there. Yeah,
and we don't get rid of a lot of stuff either, so we have a lot of that stuff that we've kept over the years as they change stuff, and that's one thing it'd be nice if there was consistency that way, but which there seems to be a little bit more now. But for a while there, we were changing everything, and we ran, all our old modified stuff as our crate stuff. Well, now that you can't really do that anymore, so now we're trying to keep the crate program updated, because there's enough crate shows. It's hard not to have one around our area.
Right.
Because the modified shows, like we were talking about earlier, the motor combination doesn't allow you to go as many places. Where the crate car, the one nice thing about that, I will say, you can go anywhere with that for the most part, and run and be, within a ballpark.
Sure.
So that's been nice. It, like you say, with them changing it so often, made it hard. Usually it takes us a little while to catch up when they change it. Now I think we got the right combination with the motor for what we can do. It's just a matter of getting it back in the car. And I struggled with car setup for a while too there. So I think we got things going back in the right direction there. And then, but of course, we trying to get the right motor in the right car all the time is always hard. Where Woodhall, you can get by, you can. I guess the thing is I know Woodhall well enough that I can get by without maybe having exactly the setup. Woodhall's a unique place, and growing up there, I think that gives you a little advantage. Where Outlaws is hard. It's the track changes a lot. It's different from night to night, and that's been a big challenge. And I just for about even the last year we ran the crate there, we still won the points with the crate, but I felt like we struggled, and that's sort of where, as the track changed there, we didn't stay up on top of it. And then as the motor programs have changed, trying to stay up on top of both those at the same time has made it really tough.
Sure. Not to come down on Outlaw either. There was a lot of personnel changes, but now Tyler seems to have that thing pretty well locked down, and it's going in a good direction, and things are constantly improving over there, which we like to see. And that's not to say anybody before that was doing a bad job either. It was just one of those personnel things that sometimes tracks go through, but now it's got some of that stability that you alluded to. Turning attention back to that crate sportsman thing, you said something that was very telling is it's hard not to have a crate sportsman car around for where you live and where you live down Addison way. You're right. It is hard not to have a crate motor because there's so many options. You've got that one car now that it's set up for the crate activity. You can run with the Grit Sportsman guys, and you've got the Grit Tour options there if you wanted to go out on the road. But it also makes me wonder if is the car where you want it to be, using the stuff that you've accumulated and had left over. It seems like that Sportsman division is driving more and more towards having specialized stuff and specialized new stuff on their cars, and the guys that are having the new stuff are finding the success.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And the thing is with like you said it exactly, the guys having the specialized cars, they're the guys with the crate stuff, and there's no slouches in that class anymore. And a lot of them have cars that are just for that. They built for that from the ground up when they were brand new. They have lightweight rears in them. They have the Gen 2 transmissions, and they probably have stuff I don't know about because I have the crate stuff as well the last couple of years. But like I say, I think it's more expensive to put together a crate car than it is a modified. And I heard that years ago because Bob Close would talk about that with super late models versus crate late models. That the crate late model guys would spend a lot more on driveline and basically overcompensate driveline-wise for what their motor cost savings were, and that's sort of what's happening now in the crate sportsman. And I know when we go to a race, we have a decent crate car. We just don't have the top-of-the-line crate car. But the one nice thing about the crates is you're not giving up 100 horsepower, 200 horsepower. You might be giving up a little bit in some of that lighter driveline and things like that. But, like you say, it's still fun to go run. The one thing I do like about running the crates now is it's just low stress when we go.
Right.
With a modified, it's high stress. Where the crate you go, and we're quick enough to get in the field pretty easy, and then it's a matter of just running and having fun. And it is definitely a different style of racing, like driving style-wise. You have to be very smooth and consistent in a crate car. Or a modified, you can actually make a mistake here or there because you have the power to get you out of it.
Right.
The crate car you don't. And then the other thing I've learned, I think because of the crate class being so competitive, is when you get down to about 5 laps to go, it becomes a lot of guys running over each other. That's the one thing I found with the crates I don't like, because where the modified guys respect you the whole race, where the crate guys all of a sudden, if you get a restart at 5 mile point with 5 to go, you better expect you're going to get run over by somebody, and that's something I don't necessarily like with them. But
sure,
I don't know. It's racing, and the thing is if we didn't have the crate car, we'd be tied down to probably running 30 shows a year, maybe 35, 40, where now it gives us an option to run 55, 60 if we want to. We don't always, about this time of year, you get to where you're narrowing down some of the shows you're going to a little more, but it's nice having that option, which I know a lot of guys don't have, and it gives us another car to run somewhere and go have fun on a Sunday. Like we ran a show at Old Bradford Speedway last year, like these tracks that I had never been to, and there's interesting, and it's fun going places like that sometimes. I don't know if we quite have the ability in the car to go show up at like a Utica Rome and run real strong there, because of those guys up in Central New York with crate stuff, they are on their game, and I'm not gonna fool myself and show up. It doesn't matter whether I have modified experience or not. Those guys are good, and you're not going to show up and outrun them unless you have the best of the best and everything right top of the line.
the crate program itself, it seems like when you look at the modified fields and you look at the crate sportsman fields, and it seems like it's starting to realize its fulfillment with all those things that were said when the crate cars came out. That it puts the race back in the hands of the drivers. It makes it more affordable. It's going to be what saves some of these local tracks. I'm surprised that we haven't seen more tracks transition into having them as their headline class, as their main draw, because there's so many cars out there. You've been able to repurpose cars that were obsolete or that people weren't running in the modifieds, because some of them just simply because the drivers had sold out. The teams disbanded and they weren't being used anymore, period. And like if you look at Fulton, where they're running 2 full point-paying fields because they've got so many sportsmen on a particular Saturday night, and the support with the Grit Tour, they've been able to open up 2 separate tours, one on Hoosier Tires, one on American Racer. There's plenty of support for that, and it's been coming together for a while, I think, but it seems like there's been a significant surge in that crate sportsman program the last 2-3 seasons.
Yeah, and I think a big thing is like years ago, like I know they still have the 358s, but a lot of it's up more northern New York or up in Canada. And a lot of it with the 358s sort of dying off in this area, in central New York area a little bit. I think it's made it now where you either on big block or you're on sportsman. So I think that's a situation too. If they're ever opened up a middle class in there, and whether it be something with a 604 crate motor or the 525 crate motor, or whether they came back and got the resurgence of the 358s, I think you'd see that blend back out a little bit. Mm-hmm. But I think right now it's just, you got, like you said, at Fulton they run around the 2 features, and you got 48 to 50 cars showing up there, and 80-something cars that have signed in there throughout the year. There's no step up for those guys until you go to the big blocks, and you know as well as I do, the central New York big blocks are a pretty tough nut to crack into. Yeah. There's not a lot of people that are going to be able to go from a sportsman right into that class and financially compete for a long time and be able to keep the motivation to do it when you're running against those guys that are so good and have that backing. And I think eventually that's going to be where they need to look into, is having like something as a stepping stone in between the two.
On the flip side,
that same problem though, where you have so many of the same looking cars, but
right.
Just I think it's nature of the beast a little bit.
On the flip side though, to open up that middle class, to get that 358 back in there, regardless of how stringent the rules are, people are going to be willing to spend serious money on the motor. So right back into that spot where people are trying to find the 358 motor with the most power, such to like where people are willing to spend 20, 30 grand on it, whereas you're not spending anywhere near that in the sportsman class for the crate motor anyway. So you can put together you can put together a solid crate program for about the same as you can put together a decent 360 sprint car. I would think that probably that transition is going to trend more towards the 360, because I don't know if the tracks are going to be interested. And at the same time, do you want to water it down so much where those guys go up and then we're right back in the same boat that we were in, where you've got 3 different divisions, you've got 3 different price points, the guys who may not even be able to afford to make that jump up. When you've got this healthy division, why open the door for that? I mean, are the crate guys looking for someplace to move up to? I mean, you've got a pretty diverse arsenal. How about your opinion on that? I mean, you've got 3 different cars out there at home. Do you want someplace else to move up into that, or do you want to keep it a division that has a lot of cars that are competitive, that it's in the driver's hands, that is low stress, where you can go to new tracks?
Oh, I think the way the crates are right now is a great deal.
Right.
I think it's really set up well, as long as the teching's good, which most tracks I think do a fair job at. I mean,
I agree with that.
Always going to be people that claim. There's always going to be guys that claim the guy that wins a lot's cheating. We went through that when I ran crate, and you see it with all these other guys, and that's never going to change. That's
right.
Part of racing. Everybody always complains about the guy that wins. But the thing is as long as they keep, I think, good touring series for the crates and things like that, and to give you options, I think that's a good setup. I'm just, curious to see if it keeps building, because it has done some feeding into the modified class, but not as much as I would have thought. There's a lot of guys that have plenty of talent and the ability to move up and really probably have the financial backing and don't. But sometimes it is nice to run with. Like I will say, like the one thing is modified. Why why stress yourself out and spend that kind of money? The enjoyment level is not that much different between running my modified and running my crate. You know, you have fun when you're running and you run competitive and you have a good time that way. So unless it's a guy that's, you know, looking to really, you know, push himself farther in his career or looking for that, you're probably right. The crate's probably a fine place for him, and that there might not be a demand for that middle ground. But you know, it just seems like at a certain point, if you get so many cars in one class, it's sort of like that, you know, supply and demand. When you get so many, if you get so many cars in the class, and it becomes watered down so much that people aren't going to go in it. If you get a guy, you know, like Fulton runs 2 features, but not every track does that. And if you get a guy that's going home every week,
sure,
well, that's where I think you're going to start seeing some issues. And then that happens at grit shows. You see some guys show up at every grit show and not really making them, and I think that gets hard on them. And, you know, that's where I think, you know, eventually sometimes too much of a good thing's, you know, not a good thing. But I don't know. I'm happy with the way the crate thing is. And in our area, I think it's working out well. I think there's some tracks that tech really well, and in our area, I don't think that happens as much as is needed. But you see a lot of good things happening, like Thunder Mountain and Skyline and 5 Mile Point, and out that way, they're doing a lot better job with tech, which I think helps, especially like a grit series and everything. So hopefully that happens everywhere. You know, we don't get everywhere, but word of mouth, it sounds like a lot of tracks are doing a better job at that.
Do you have the same body on all of your cars? Not in terms of the style of body, because I know down there you've got the options to run in sail panels, different places. You can do a lot of different things in terms of standard bodies and things like that. I mean the decal combinations. Every year when you letter your 3 cars, is it the same sponsor list and the same color combination, everything on all 3 cars?
Yeah, because the biggest reason is like the body that I was running at Woodhall that's now on the car that we just converted to a crate, that's 3 years old, that body. The other body's 2 years old, and then I got a new body. We don't necessarily, that's where we try to save some money here or there. Sure. Like, I mean, if the body's in rough shape, obviously we replace it, but sometimes you can get through another year on it. And I don't know, I get a lot of people asking me if we're going to change our scheme, because apparently that's a sign that I've had it for too long. A lot of people have been asking us. So, I don't know, I've thought about it a little bit. But the nice thing is sometimes when you have a car that's recognizable, you know, it's nice that way where people can pick it out easy. But sure. I've had a lot of people. We do have pretty much the same scheme. You know, the one car's got a little bit more fluorescence on the one car. But I like bright cars and white cars because I've seen enough guys get turned around sideways when they had a dark car and you don't see them real well on a dusty track. Right. Try to keep them white and then have some fluorescence on them. But I don't know. Maybe it is time to change it up a little bit. I've been asked that more times this year than what I've ever been asked for our paint scheme, and you know, so I don't know. But as long as it's bright, that's the biggest thing I like about them.
Well, I was actually going a different direction than some of the questions that have been pitched to you. I was going a different direction than that, but that might be something to consider if you're getting a lot of people say that when are you going to change your paint scheme up. Where I was going with that was you've got the crate car sitting there, and you said that gave you the option of going from 25 to 35 races up to 55 races. So since you don't have different sponsor combinations for your crate car versus your Woodhull car versus your Outlaw car, does that make it easier? Does that even come up in conversations when you're trying to recruit help to get the car out on the track, when you're trying to recruit sponsor help? Instead of saying, hey, I'm going to 30 races, you get to tell that person, hey, I'm going to 55, and it's going to be in a much vaster area than you would have seen otherwise. How does that play into the marketing side of things?
Well, and be honest with you, our sponsors, we don't get a whole lot from our sponsors. Right. I mean, they do what they can. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to complain about anything, but we don't have a $5,000 sponsor or a $10,000 sponsor. We have a bunch of small sponsors that's more or less product sponsor deals. So, beginning of the year, you know, they give what they can. We have one sponsor that gives a little bit here and there when he gets a little bit, you know, when he gets a better deal as far as transporting stuff and he makes a little more money, he'll pass that along to us. So it's nobody that we're with, like, we don't sign a contract, or there's no, like, you have to run here or have to run there. It's more family friends that have developed over time and things like that, or people that go, like, Woodhall's a track I probably have to run, and I couldn't, like, just not run there because a lot of my sponsors are local from there, and that's where they go to have a good time on a Saturday night. And so that track I'm pretty locked in there. But other than that, it's pretty much I get to make my own schedule with it. There's some that will ask you how you did, but there's a lot of them that don't really necessarily know where you've gone each time. So it doesn't really lock me down, not like it does a lot of the guys that have, a big dollar financial sponsor that they have to be at certain places where there's stores and locations and things like that.
Gotcha.
Which would be great if I had that kind of sponsor. Like I said, I'm happy with what we have. I mean, I would love to have more, as anybody would. But the people we have they're good supporters, and a lot of them it's just that we don't ask for as much as we probably could.
Sure.
And it's one of those deals where they're there for you. If you needed them, if something came up and you needed it, they're there for you. But it's one of those kind of deals where I've never been good at asking for things, like asking for money, and so it's when we need something, they're there for us. But it's one of those kind of deals where it's not like an agreed upon amount at the beginning of the year. And I'm sure we probably shortchange ourselves compared to what I'm sure some of these guys are getting. But, it's still, I guess when it comes down to it, it's my hobby, and it's hard sometimes to get people to pay for it, and I'm not good at asking for that. I wish I was.
Well, you take what you need. I mean, it'd be one thing if it's a lot easier to keep a sponsor for several years in a row. Well, you take what you need. If you wring them dry in the first 2 years and then they're not interested in it anymore, now instead of having that $500 for 6-7 years, you're gonna have that $2,000 for 2, and that does not equate to the same money. And also you alluded to having a bunch of the small ones, a bunch of small sponsors. If you have $10, $50 sponsors, it's going to add up to the same as any other $500 single $500 sponsor would, and that's going to be the same no matter how many or what the dollar value is. So I mean that part of it certainly that part of it certainly works. I can see where that's logical. But then y'all also got the other variable that, and we've hit on this a number of times on the show, and you've sort of even hedged around it yourself in our conversation. Not every mechanic shop in town has a race car anymore. You look at the number of race cars that are just kind of around in a particular town that has a racetrack in it. It's not the same as it used to be. And all those local shops that used to do the sponsoring and stuff, the economy's hit them a little bit, and they don't have the disposable income to invest it in race cars the way that they used to. And that affects everybody. So I mean, like you said, it's a hobby that you feel, with the way you said it, almost like you feel guilty trying to get somebody to pay for it. And a lot of times those businesses don't have it, even if you were bold enough to go ask for it directly, say, hey, Company X, I need $10,000 to go do this, and I'm going to get your name out there in front of all these different people at 55 races. A lot of those guys don't have that kind of money to shell out anymore anyway.
Right, and the one thing I do take pride in is we've had sponsor we've had for 10 plus years, the guys on the cars or more, some of them, and that's a nice thing, and we sort of got good relationships with them, and it's one of those kind of deals where I'm not going to ask somebody to go broke. They're giving us what they can, and that's all you can ask for, and they see a lot of these guys that have a sponsor, like you say, for a year, and then it's gone because either the sponsor expected a lot more or the person expected a lot more, and then it sours their taste for sponsoring race cars in general. So there's one whole sponsor that we've lost in the sport, and I think that's happened a lot with a lot of different sponsors, as their expectation, what they were sold upon, was sold upon a lot more than what the team was able to offer, and that sort of, it gets hard to find sponsors anymore because of that.
Yep, I understand that. While we're on the topic, who is on the car? Who's some of the people that help make this possible? I know you got people that help you on a weekly basis in addition to the names that are on the car.
Well, my family, first of all, they put up with a lot. It takes a lot of hours in the shop, and we just scheduled a vacation for February, so we could schedule that around racing and when I have a week off of school, and so you don't get to go on the big summer vacations or anything like that. So they really do sacrifice a lot, and my boys get to go to camps and all that stuff, but my wife doesn't get to go to those big beach vacations in the summer like a lot of families do. So I got to thank her, and my dad sacrifices a lot, as he always has, to try to make sure that we put the best team we can out there. Mm-hmm. My sponsors I have are RLB Trucking of Jasper. They're a very good sponsor. I have Woodhall Auto Supply, which used to be LeBaron Brothers, and I've had him for a long time. Bucky LeBaron, he's a real good guy. The Nickel Brew, which is Terry Brewer, who owned the car for a long time of his own, has a great bar in Canasteel. Lincoln Fabrications, Lauren Lincoln. Chuck Morgan's Auto Repair in Woodhall, and that's a very good sponsor for us. It's been with me since I started racing 20 years ago. Town and Country Disposal is also on the car. They treat us really well, and we have a lot of product sponsors like Brakeman and Jones Belt Dry System and Arch Radiators, and just Teo Pro. It helps a lot with good knowledge when you can. So it's a really good and supportive group that we do have.
Right on. Well, good to hear that you've got all that support behind you. Is there anything that we missed through our course of our conversation? I told you when I talked earlier today it'd be about 15 minutes. I already looked at the clock. It's over 35. Is there anything else that we missed?
No. I think it's great, though, that you guys, the putting on the show and the guys like you that promote the sport is really great because, I think we're in a big change in the sport with all the iRacing stuff coming up and different stuff like that. And it's nice to see people like opening people's eyes and talking about the sports and having discussions. And I think it's really great that you do that because I think it's just things change all the time, and it's nice to see. It's nice to see word getting out there and making it feel like that. Our community's still growing and the race community is getting better all the time.
We've been around for a while, and it never fails that week to week when we're on, is we learn something new about racing based on the people that we talk to, and it's always cool to branch out. Stephen Ovens sort of tipped me off and said, get a hold of Donnie, and see what he's been up to, and I'm glad you've been able to find some success and turn that luck around for this year. Hopefully when you get that motor back, it'll bring some big power, and you can recoup some of that magic that you had over at Outlaw, and hopefully things keep going on this uptick over at Woodhull. I know you got a strong group of guys that you're running against, and Billy Van Pelt, he's not an easy one to beat on a weekly basis.
Oh yeah, it's just getting competition strong everywhere we go, and that's why we do it. That's what makes it fun. Is if it was easy, everybody would do it. The competition part's what's fun and exciting and keeps you coming back for more. And we all would love to have 20 or 30 wins in a year, but sometimes it's the 15th, the third run that makes the most out of the night and stuff. Right. And it's fun having a group of guys you can run with, and both tracks have that right now, which is really nice.
Well, Donnie, man, I wish you the best of luck as the summer continues, and hopefully everything continues on this trend. And check back in, man. Let me know how things are going. Hopefully you can pick up a few more W's before we get to Labor Day.
Okay, we'll do. We'll keep in touch, and hopefully I'll have good reason to talk to you and stuff. Great.
I'll be looking forward to it. Good luck, Donnie. Thanks a lot for coming on the show tonight.
All right, thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. There goes
What?
Donnie Lawson won the Jake Davis Memorial event over there at Woodhull over the weekend. Good talking with him. A couple good topics came up. I like it when we have nights like this. Stephen Oven, I appreciate the hookup on that too. We'll rip through some quick weekly stuff before we get out of here. Good to hear that Dave Rouser is recovering well after he had that harrowing accident last Tuesday on the Hall of Fame 100 night over there at Weedsport Raceway. He flirted with some disaster there. Right now, as we speak, action is underway, as long as the rain stayed out of the way in Elbridge. Rolling Wheels was back in action. They're going to have two events this month. This is the first one. This is the Sportsman Spectacular. There's going to be two 2000-win features. One of them is going to be Sportsman Grit Series rules on Hoosier tires. The other one on the American Racer rubber. The support event, 1,000-win street stock race. Everything started at 7 o'clock, so they're about 40 minutes into the program in the event that they got it in. I haven't had a chance to check social media to see anything otherwise. The Summer Broiler is a week from tonight. That's a modified show. That's one round from the modifieds, or excuse me, that's one feature for the modifieds versus having the split one for the sportsman. Running full programs for both tire compounds, so to say, and then it's not like you're going to have American Racer modifieds and Hoosier modifieds. It's all regular modifieds, 7,500 to win, 500 to start that one. The sport cards, two 2,000-win features for the sportsman, just like they got tonight, one for Hoosiers, one for American Racers. Fans can redeem their ticket stub from tonight and save $10 on admission. July 27th, there's some other promotions on there. Jump online, Rolling Wheels Racing Park, rollingwheelsracingpark.com. Some other action. Seneca County Fair is in action, and they started about 40 minutes ago. They've got their qualifying night for the Combative Motorsports Demolition Derby action over there, and they are going to be running their Figure 8 program as well, and then championship night is Saturday. Jamie Eldridge picked up a win in the Demolition Derby at Yates County. Compact division had like 30 cars in it. It was packed. And then Tim Ellison in Waterloo. I ran into him today, and I didn't realize that he had won one of the rounds over there in the stock chain go at Yates County. So congratulations out to Tim Ellison. He's a guy who's been on the Crash Course before. Crash Course airing on Monday nights here on Finger Lakes 1. He picked up a win over there at Yates County Fair in the stock division, so that was cool to see him picking up the victory. Let's dial things back to Weedsport where we were a minute ago. This will kind of build on a couple different topics for us once we get through it. Stu Friesen came on late in the second half of that Hall of Fame 100 to put his car in Victory Hill over at Weedsport. Weedsport Speedway hosting the Hall of Fame 100, which was part of the Super Dirt Car Series action. Super Dirt Car Series was in action this week as well, running Tuesday at Eldora. Billy Decker won that. And then they had the All-Star race, which I forgot to look that up. Let me pull that up quick. As part of the Eldora Dirt Derby, I believe was the name of it, for the Cape World Truck Series with NASCAR. Stu Friesen qualifying on the pole for the truck race, finished second to Matt Crafton in that event. It was broken down into 3 stages, and Billy Whitaker ended up winning the All-Star Showdown event at Eldora, and then the Tour is racing tonight in Sharon Speedway. In other action, other results, bringing it back to Weedsport, Larry White was third behind Friesen and Tim McCready. Eric Rudolph, Pete Britton in the top 5. Gary Tompkins was 7th. He was the hard charger, moving from 14th up to 7th place. Dave Rauscher, again, glad he's recovering well after that harrowing incident where he was just blowing donuts and stuff on the infield. Rocky Warner won the Sportsman race. It was the second wire-to-wire event for the BA Custom Header Sportsman Shootout Series. It ran off without interruption. Dave Marcichelli was second. Tyler Caprera, Kevin Ridley, Kevin Root in the top 5. Other Hall of Fame inductees: Freddie Adam, Galston Salves, Vicky Emig, Richie Tobias, Randy Ross, Letty Salmons, all going into the Hall of Fame along with Alan Johnson and Steve Payne. They started side by side. Steve Payne ended up getting up to 12th place. He was driving a Dendis Company's Westmoreland Golf Course Extreme Lubricants Bicknell out of the Matt Shepard shop because Matt was still serving his suspension because Cornwall had rained out. So Matt had to sit that Weedsport race out, put Steve Payne in the car. That was kind of cool to see. At Outlaw, Dale Welty won this. Oops, what I didn't do was hit on Steve Payne's win over there at Outlaw Speedway on Friday. It was Steve Payne taking the win in that one. It was the second of the year. Derek Pozziello led early. Steve Payne, Alan Johnson, Matt Shepard, the cast of characters making their way through the field. Johnson ended up getting second place, closed on Payne in the late going, ran out of laps. Shepard ended up third after Johnson got past him late in the going, turning our attention to the support classes over there at Outlaw. Del Welty coming away with the Sportsman feature win ahead of Brent Ayers and Todd Hayward. And then Jeremy Wonderling got a win in the late models. Kurt Stebbins and J.J. Mazur were in the top 3. Brian Knowles, there was 2 IMCA features. Both of those were won by Rich Michael. He had a pretty good night picking up both of those. Chuck Winslow won the street stock feature. Ray Heyer, he won, but he was disqualified out of the 4-cylinders. He was on a tear over there. So he was left wanting after the post-race tech. Dizzy Force ended up with the win there. Erica Bell and Mike Stone ended up moving up the ladder into the top 5 after the DQ. Mark Manutolo won the hobby stock feature. Cole Yaus won the youth main at Brewerton. On the heels of his great run over at Weedsport, Gary Tompkins came through for a win at Brewerton Speedway. It was a good win for him. Glenn Forward won the Sportsman race, and it was Casey Sykes coming away with the win in the Mod Lights. Chris Bonofsky winning the 4-cylinders at Spencer. Rain affected the card, but they got the whole race in nonetheless. The special draw was the New York Super Stocks. They needed overtime to get through it. Chris Finaccario, I should say, took the win in that one over Chris Vogler and Dylan Bancroft. Paul Fly won the 4-cylinders and the front-wheel drive 6-cylinders. They could hold the track a little bit better, so they ran last and in the rain no less, and it was limited a little bit by the rain. And Barrett Schenk got the win over Brandon Allen. Tommy Catalano won the 35-lap modified feature ahead of Mike Leedy and Kevin Timmerman. Saturday at Fulton, Jimmy Phelps came through with a popular win over there. That was his first of the year. He started from 10th and took 8 laps to get into the lead. He took it on an outside move and Pat Ward and Tim Sears were fighting for the scraps behind him. Ward was second. Max McLaughlin was fourth. Adam Roberts was fifth. Tyler Trump won the Sportsman feature, the first of two Sportsman features. Chris Mackey won the second. And let's see, Sean Beardsley won the late model feature. Jimmy Moyer won the first of two novice Sportsman features. Let me see, where'd it go? Tom Juneau won the second. And Quinn Walls won the four-cylinder feature. At Oswego, Dave Shulock, he got his fourth of the year over Otto Sitterly. That was the summer championship event over there. Mike Bond won the small block super feature. Canandaigua was closed due to the drainage problems and saturated grounds. They didn't race. And at Utica Rome, Pat Ward won the first of two modified features. Matt Shepard was second. He rebounded. He won the second one. Hands down, no problem. Stormed through and did just fine. Dave Marcaccelli got the Sportsman win. Turning back Kyle Inman and Kevin Root. And Mike Welch won the Pro Stock feature ahead of Shane Henderson and Bill Knapp. So that covers that. Covers everything. I think that is going to allow us to put a fork in number 228. Appreciate everybody who tuned in to watch with us tonight. I know there's yet a lot of racing options, and hopefully everything goes off tonight without a hitch. I know we got a thunderstorm. I live in Waterloo here, and we got a thunderstorm here a little bit earlier that it washed through, but it washed through quick. On the flip side, Erie County Fair over near Buffalo, they had a tornado touchdown, essentially. They had a big storm come through, a lot of high winds, and unconfirmed reports of a tornado that had touched down in that area. So there's some iffy weather in and around this part of New York. So hopefully everybody gets their activities in without too much delay. And we wish you the best. Get out there and enjoy some of that racing action this weekend. And we'll be back again in 2 weeks, provided that we're here. Let me double-check that schedule. I know we are going to be off next week because we're going to be in Utah. So, yeah, right now we might end up being on the 2nd of August just to make sure that we can fit everything in because we are supposed to be at a Demolition Derby event the first week of August with Spinning Wheels Productions. So stay tuned to the Facebook page. It'll let you know how the schedule is playing out. That's going to do it for this one. Again, we appreciate everybody coming and hanging out with us for this episode of the 31st lap from the North Park building here at Academy Square at Finger Lakes 1 on Cayuga Street in downtown Seneca Falls. We'll see you right back here again in a couple weeks.